Hey guys, Nat Luna here for Try 5 and Lunaticoms. Welcome to a new segment inspired by James Lipton's Inside the Actors Studio, where instead of conventional on-screen actors, I'd like to interview people you usually hear and not see. Not just actors, but voice actors. People you probably hear all the time, but never thought that there was a person behind the voice. My first guest is a great man that I've heard ever since I was a child, mostly in anime dubs of Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Where many may know him in an assortment of other roles in animation, such as Viva Pinata, Ultimate Muscle, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Kirby Right Back Atcha, Goro Ricky, and many others. Most know him as the evil doctor with the master plan. Would you like to introduce yourself, Mr. Guest?
Sure, I'm Mike Pollock, and all those descriptions apply to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Michael B. Pollock.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pollock, for finding the time to grant me this interview.
Thanks for asking.
Mr. Pollock, I know you're a very busy man, a family man, and we're under a time limit, so I'll try to make this as fast as possible. Now, I know you don't like answering a lot of the same questions all the time, but I hope you don't mind me asking most of the questions on your FAQ page.
Yeah, we'll make it work.
Alright, that being said, let's begin. Mr. Pollock, where are you from and where did you go?
Long Island, New York, grew up in Roslyn Heights. Was there until high school in 1983. Went to college in Syracuse and graduated from there in 1988. While I was there in 1986, started part-time work on the radio and one of the local radio stations. Left that station in 1992. Went to Rochester, New York in 1992. Worked there as a production director at a rock station for a year till that didn't work out because I wasn't rock and roll enough. And then headed down to the New York metropolitan area where I worked for a radio syndication outfit from 1993 until 2008, more or less. And during that time, I was able to build up enough of a stable of characters to put together a demo, send it out, and start doing standalone voiceover work, which is infinitely more fun.
It's incredible. At what point in your life did you know that you wanted to become a voice actor?
Well, I always knew as I was a kid that I was going to be on the radio doing something with my voice. And once I had been in radio since '86, as I had mentioned, what I found out quite quickly that I really enjoyed on the radio was doing wacky voices in commercials and stuff. So when the career path went in the way that it did, I was able to take that commercial wacky character knowledge and transport it into a standalone voiceover career. So that would have been around about the turn of the century, 2001, when animation and voiceover started happening in a big way.
Oh, I see. What process did you go through in becoming a voice actor? Like, what was the transition between being on the radio to fully becoming a voiceover artist?
I had been doing acting in school ever since I can remember, from as early as third grade, when I played a guy in a toga in a little pageant about life in Greece, I guess it was. And then kept doing plays throughout school in both school theater and community theater. And in college I was doing some theater shows too, while still doing radio, and eventually the two paths commingled, and I took the acting experience that I had and put it towards character voice work in radio, and then took the radio experience and put it towards my acting experience. And eventually I was able to realize that radio was not doing as well as it used to for most of the people in it, and realized that there's a lot more freelance voice work around, and that's what I ended up pursuing.
Oh, amazing. That means a lot to me. If you can recall, what was your first voice acting job?
The first one, if you want to count it as a first one, as in something that I was paid for separately, would have been for some commercial or other when I was in Syracuse. I should remember the client without digging through old computer records. I can't, but it was a car dealer or some type of store or something. But while I was on the radio, I was doing comedy bits for them, and I was doing, there was a zoo bus that went around between the zoo and downtown Syracuse, and I was cast as the talking head of a gorilla, Gordon the gorilla, who sounded vaguely like Humphrey Bogart. Not paid separately for that, but I'll still count that as one of my early standalone character work. And then the first real-life animation thing that had any type of legitimacy was not even animation. It was a live-action footage of boats in New York Harbor, and I voiced all of the male boats on a VHS video entitled Little Tug's Big Adventure. don't bother looking for it. It's not worth the price you'll have to pay.
I will do it anyway.
Perfect. Best of luck with that.
What was your big break that got you noticed in the industry?
I sent my demo reel, which I had developed, to a blind box in Backstage Magazine. And blind boxes were, I'm not sure they still exist in that same form. They don't in this age of the internet. But it was a post office box that you didn't know who you were really sending it to. So the ad just said, we're auditioning for a cartoon. Send us your stuff to box 12, whatever it was. So I sent in my stuff, and the project, as I found out when they called me for an audition, was Pokemon, produced by the 4Kids people.
Oh.
They brought me in, and I booked a minor walk-on role in an episode of Pokemon. And shortly thereafter, they were building the 4Kids TV programming block from scratch. They remembered me, and they brought me in to audition for more stuff. I booked the roles of the mayor and Sammo the bartender on Kirby, Meat and Ultimate Muscle, ultimately Eggman and Sonic X, and Big Oriki and Go-Go Riki, and Langston Lickatoad on Viva Pinata, as well as doing most of the promos for the first couple of years of 4Kids TV and the Fox box.
Well, that I guess ultimately answers how you landed the role of Dr. Eggman. You were already in the 4Kids programming block network, and after being on Pokemon, they just called you in for Eggman, right?
Yeah, they had acquired the show. They had a secret meeting that said, we have this special show coming called Project X. We can't tell you anything about it. But eventually I found out about it because they called me in for an audition. They apparently, the 4Kids people, really wanted me for the part of Dr. Eggman, and their task was to convince people at Sega that I should be Dr. Eggman. So 4Kids sent me some clips of Dean Bristow from the games, and they said, we want to match this voice, practice this voice. So I took the clips and went home and started practicing my I'm Dean Bristow. Went in for an audition and read the lines just as they gave them to me. Called back for callbacks a week or so later because they were not convinced. Went in, did the same thing. Dr. Eggman. One more round of callbacks after that before I finally got the call. Hey, you're Dr. Eggman. Welcome to the show. And within the first couple of episodes, I also ended up being cast as Ella the maid.
I understand that was just partly a joke, right? Like, what was the story behind Ella exactly?
It wasn't a joke so much as the producer walked in one day when I was recording my lines for Dr. Eggman and asked the director, have we cast Ella the maid yet? And the director said, no, not yet. The producer said, how about having Mike do it? So Mike said, okay, sure, what do you need? And he said, some type of Latina maid sounding woman, fine. So I said, hey, look at me, I'm doing Ella the maid, okay, great. Not a problem. They recorded an audition. I heard nothing of it, came back the next week for another round of episodes, and I said, by the way, in passing, any word on Ella the maid? Have I been cast as Ella the maid? Oh, no, we cast someone else. Okay, great, not a problem. Went on to do Dr. Eggman. Came back again the following week and suddenly found out, guess what, you're Ella the maid. All right, then, so I'm Ella the maid.
That's amazing. Aside from Dr. Eggman, which is what most people know you for, what has been your favorite vocal role in your entire career, and why?
Meat from Ultimate Muscle and the various voices that were spawned from Meat hold a special place in my heart. Meat specifically because it was the first big recurring role in a series. The first roles I got in the series were in Kirby Right Back At Ya, but right after that I was booked as Meat. And Meat being essentially the co-star of the show, that was a pretty big deal. And not to mention the hysterical truck driver voice that I was able to give him always made me laugh, because who wouldn't laugh at a voice that sounds like this, huh?
Yeah,
and
I know I did.
The Meat voice was recycled as Bonaparte in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, who was sort of an effeminate Meat. And then Big Oriki was essentially a more intelligent Meat. And so that basic voice always got laughs.
Which is easier to voice overall, an animated show or a video game? Why?
Animated shows tend to be easier because they have a linear plot that you can follow. You can go from point A to point B to point C and kind of follow the action like a story, because that's what it is. Video games not only can branch off into many different story paths, which you have to then go back and start from point A again, and instead of going A, B, C, you're going A, D, E. And also there's often a big round of reacts, fight reacts, and grunting reacts, and various battle sequences, so you'll just spend an hour going, which is a little tedious.
Have you ever drawn inspiration from someone for one of your characters?
Oh, lots of times. I have several relatives that will show up as characters, either intentionally or unintentionally. Every TV show I've ever seen, and I listen to talk radio a lot just to hear people's voices from around the country. So I'll just take inspiration from voices that I've heard and just bopping around town and hearing wacky voices and saying, well, there's something in there, and let's use that for a voice.
What's your favorite thing about being a voice actor?
The short attention span that it requires. An hour or two on a gig, maybe up to 4 hours, and then you're off to the next gig, as opposed to stage work or on-camera work, which drags on for days and weeks and possibly months. And ain't nobody got time for that, as a famous internet meme would say. There's also no makeup and no wardrobe most of the time, so it's quick and easy, and you're able to squeeze in a lot of different jobs in one day if you're so lucky.
What's your least favorite thing about being a voice actor?
The constant auditioning. It is a constant search for work and a constant stream of rejection, or more accurately, a constant stream of being ignored. I send out a dozen or so auditions every week, and most of the time, unless I book a job, I will hear back from none of them.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, I'd say.
That's the nature of the business.
How has voice acting changed or enriched your life as both an actor and as a person?
I have several more thousand friends and followers on Facebook and Twitter than I would have had otherwise. On the flip side, my Facebook feed is full of a lot more pictures of Sonic the Hedgehog than it would have been otherwise. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just an interesting observation. If I wasn't known as Dr. Eggman, there would be probably no pictures of Sonic the Hedgehog, yes. Which is that's what happens with that, and it's brought some degree of fame, if you want to call it fame. It's probably not the Hollywood red carpet treatment type fame, but it's still more fame than I had 10 years ago.
Do you watch or play the medium you voice act for?
I'm more likely to watch TV or shows because I'm more likely to watch TV shows just in general because I'm not a gamer. The closest I get to gaming is either watching my children play games. If they can be bothered to play as my character, I'll hear them play. Or if I'm in a store and they're demoing the game, I'll go over and say, play that game as me for me, thanks. I've done that a couple of times. But otherwise, if it's on TV and I can follow the plot, I will tune in.
As Dr. Eggman, what has overall been your favorite performance and why, both in video games and in Sonic X?
Sonic Boom, for reasons I can't explain just yet, but you'll see it when it premieres.
No.
It's hysterical. But the secondary favorite, if I had to pick one from before, in games it would be both the wacky and clever writing of Colors and Generations, which were both tons of fun and chock full of laughs. And there were some moments in Sonic X that were out of character, which made them interesting. Eggman breaking the fourth wall and answering the phone in one episode was completely random and hysterical, and I got to pick up the phone and go, hello. And then there was a very tender scene between Eggman and Everyone Hates Chris. Sorry, Everybody Hates Chris for the quoting that correctly. Yeah. Where you see a little bit of Eggman's almost his heart come out and be on display in a tender sort of way. So it was fun to be able to take the character from yelling, screaming, angry to, look, I actually have the potential to care.
Aside from your own, which Sonic character is your favorite and why?
Bo-Koo'n, because the voice that television's Andrew Reynolds gave to that character was so hysterical, and the fact that he could do that all by himself without any electronic manipulation amazed me.
What line as which character do people ask you to do the most?
Unfortunately, the Pingus meme happens a lot, and I've done that once, and I'm not getting fooled about that again. But in general, I hate that hedgehog comes up a lot. But these days, without Sega's official permission, I've got to keep things generic, and I'll just do a simple "Hi, I'm Dr. Eggman," which you can't really do much else with that.
Do people recognize you on the street as a voice actor?
Never. Completely anonymous.
That's great. What line as which character is your favorite and why?
I'd probably go back to Meat and his famous, well, famous is a rather strong word, but he had a recurring catchphrase of "Heh!"
Yeah. Because of what you just said about probably legal reasons with Sega and not being able to do it outside of the medium, not being able to do it off record with a fan, per se, would there be any problem if you could do an Ella the Maid impression as Eggman?
As Eggman?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess that would be okay. Because Sonic X has been off the air for so long, so that might be something like, I hated that hedgehog!
Oh my god.
Thank you.
What has been the weirdest role you've ever done and why?
That's a fascinating and incredible question. Let's see. There were a couple of roles that I auditioned for and didn't book. One of them was for some bizarre independent film with a crazed chicken, so I had to do some chicken impressions. Didn't book that, but it was a fun audition. Probably the most interesting of note was in an online web video for Pop Chips, a line of Pop Chips flavors endorsed by Katy Perry, where I got to voice a plush cat known as Fat Cat in a sort of stylized German accent, which is pretty cool because even though I came no closer to Katy Perry than you are to me, I at least appeared in the same video, sort of at the same time.
I see. The thing is, I was expecting to hear a totally different question, which I would hope would have put up to this very special question just for you, which I was not expecting that. I was unaware of that role. The thing is, I heard that you, and this is confidential, though some people may know it, that you dubbed a hentai. Is this true? And if so, what was your role and your experience in that?
It is true. There were a couple of them, and my roles are worth discovering if you'd like to keep searching. But it was not much worse than any other traditional role, other than the dialogue had a lot more heavy breathing in it.
Oh, I see. Oh, wow. How does one become a voice actor, Mr. Pollock?
Practice. Like I follow the path of doing as much acting as you can. I didn't take professional acting lessons in college, but I did take some acting lessons throughout grade school and high school and some side work in college. But study all the acting you can on stage, because even though you will ultimately end up in a booth, possibly just talking to yourself, you've got to know what it's like to be acting around other people and interacting with other people and reacting with other people, because eventually you may be called upon to react to no one, and you've got to know how to imagine what you're reacting to when there's no one there. So make sure you put in some time on the stage to learn the basics of the terminology and how your director's likely to describe stuff to you, so when you're in the booth you can hit the ground running and know what you're doing. And then build up a professional reel of characters. Work on different voices, because versatility is always important. And then if you have some scratch you can spend, get professional coaching, because a voiceover coach will also help you produce a demo, because you want your demo to sound professional and not like you recorded it in your bathroom. You want it to have some music, some sound effects, be about a minute and a half of quality entertainment, and that's what people are going to listen to and eventually hire you from if you're not doing specific auditions for roles, which will also happen.
How has the entertainment industry changed since you've begun your career?
The internet has had a major effect. Most of the stuff when I started was a lot of, again, the first few jobs I got, I had to actually mail a cassette into the job. Then eventually I started mailing CDs, and then eventually it all happened online. But of course there are also in-person auditions. I've got a bunch of agents that I work with who will send an email or call and say, you've got to be here tomorrow at 2 o'clock to audition for a thing. So I hop out and go and audition and audition in real time. But with the advent of the internet, you can sit in your home, as I do very often, and audition from home, thanks to various online sites and various other casting people who happily take online auditions.
Oh, that's great to know for me. And for many people out there. And I think a lot of people would like to know a question like this, which is having a second career necessary for being an actor, or a voice actor in this case?
Start over, because Skype was being Skypey. What?
Excuse me. Is having a second career necessary for being a voice actor? Because a lot of people, like you just said, can record in the commodity of their home. But maybe many people can't make it in the industry, so they'll have to refall back into another career. Do you think it's necessary to have a second career choice?
I had a day job for the first 8 or so years of doing this, and at the time it was necessary, but it's a catch-22, because if you're working all day, it's tough to sneak out of work and get into auditions. So I occasionally, more often than I would like to reveal, butted heads with my boss on trying to leave the office for more than an hour or so for what would be nominally a lunch hour, but I would often have to leave a couple times a day. So there's that presenting a challenge. If you can find some other freelance work, because acting, in most cases, acting is freelance work. You work for as long as the job runs, and if the job is an on-camera or on-stage thing, it could run for weeks or months or years, but if it's a voiceover thing, it could run for an hour. And so you're constantly looking for other work. But if you have time to look for other work, you may have time to keep some other freelance work going simultaneously. So it's a very delicate balance at times.
Do you do vocal exercises before working? If so, what kind?
I probably should do them more than I do. You could do, there are weird breathing exercises which make you look totally deranged with and just exercising your tongue and your lips and your various parts of your articulatory system. The challenge for me is keeping hydrated, because if you're doing a lot of yelling and screaming, there's really no amount of warm-up that's going to make that any easier. The challenge is how long it'll take you to recover after the session. So if it's 4 hours of yelling as Dr. Eggman, there could be a day or so of recovery, because otherwise I sound like this.
Yeah. Oh, I've been there, done that. Do you act physically when you're recording?
You have to. You have to act as wild and as crazy as possible, because your physicality is going to translate to your read. If you try acting standing stock still with your hands by your side, you're not going to sound nearly as exciting as if your hands are going wild and crazy and you're going wacky.
That's amazing.
Thank you. Even though just now I was doing that with my arms folded, but that's exactly. But if you were paying me big bucks to read something,
yeah.
Flailing manically.
Do you do something special to get into character before recording?
It's a very technical thing, and it's called getting a reference. If it's a role that I've done before and I've not done it for a while, I will ask the engineer to please play me a reference. So they'll take a sample of the very early dialogue that I recorded, and I'll hear what it sounded like and said, oh, that's the voice. And then I'm back into character. But other than that, for me, not being a method actor, I am in character for the duration of reading the line, and then I'm back to being my wacky, crazy self.
Mr. Pollock, I understand that, as I said before, for legal reasons, you're not allowed to perform certain characters on screen or on record, so we can skip this section if that's a problem, but I would love to speak to Dr. Eggman and ask him a few questions if there's no inconvenience.
No!
Oh.
That was it.
Oh.
Sorry!
That's sad.
Call my attorney!
Anyway, for having to skip that, ladies and gentlemen, we're sadly reaching the end of the interview, ending it with the famous questionnaire, popularized by French writer Marcel Proust, asked years later by French TV personality Bernard Pivot, adapted by James Lipton on his interviews. Mr. Pollock, what is your favorite word?
Is that my answer? I'm thinking it just a moment. What's my favorite word? Comedy.
Great answer. What is your least favorite word?
Well, of course, the answer would have to be tragedy.
What turns you on creativity, spiritually or emotionally?
Having fun. If I'm not having fun, there's no point.
What turns you off?
Tedium.
Have all the freedom to say this. What is your favorite curse word?
It varies, but while there are the traditional 7 dirty words, I actually, with having a history of amusing outtakes, will very often use some type of wacky nonsense word, especially if I'm in a session with a client that I'd like to be in a session with again. So something like duty bombers.
What sound or noise do you love?
Laughter. Often my own.
That's great.
Thank you.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Whining!
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I have attempted being a writer, mostly a comedy writer and a song parody writer.
Anything we may hear, may have heard, or
there's
search?
There's all the wacky radio syndication stuff that I did, but most of it was so transient that you're not the only way you're going to find it is by going to my website and looking deep in the demos section. You'll find some song parody demos, and in bits of my animation demos, there is some of the character work from those bits. But they were all works for hire, so I don't have a lot of them. But I've got a bunch of the old song parodies, which at the time in the early '90s were very topical. Now they're a little bit dated, but find them, and if you are old enough to either remember or willing to research the 90s, and for example the Michael Jackson trial of 94 or 95, you'll say, oh, I guess that was pretty clever for the time. So yes, if for some reason terminal laryngitis sets in, I could go back to being a writer if I had to.
Oh, that sounds great. What profession would you not like to do?
Having just narrated a bunch of e-learning things, which I'm still doing, about factoring and business loans, something in the financial field.
I heard that you recorded a 15-hour audiobook, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, I've done a couple of audiobooks, which, speaking of tedium, audiobooks can be very profitable, but they also require a huge amount of attention. Working at Audible, one of the major audiobook recording places, they will stick you in a room for 6 hours with a lunch break, and you have to maintain your interest for 6 hours. I had a tremendous challenge doing that. I didn't mind. I'm not much of a reader for pleasure, but I had no trouble reading for work. But the physical, if you imagine telling a bedtime story to someone for 6 hours, it will take a toll on your voice. It will take a toll on your concentration. By the 5th hour, you're counting the minutes, 59 minutes, 58 minutes, 57 minutes. And it's I guess for people that like listening to audiobooks, bless your heart, but to actually have to record them, some people really love it. But I, especially trying to do it at home, as I've tried to do, it's really tough finding a big chunk of time when the family is not badgering me for my attention. So, yeah, but the e-learning things, which have been an hour of, this is what factoring is all about. I've had no problem reading about factoring and having a basic enough understanding to make it sound like you know what I'm talking about. But for the people that are actually listening to it because it's their career, that would not be my career.
Finally, Mr. Pollock, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
What took you so long?
Amazing answer. What can we look forward to with you? Is there any coming conventions you'll be at? Is there anything you're going to be doing vocally?
My official published schedule is quite empty right at the moment, but I would like to believe that once Sonic Boom hits the airwaves in the fall of 2014 on Cartoon Network, that my social and professional calendar will again get quite busy, because suddenly Mr. Big Television Star will want to have lots of appearances. But there is at least one possibly potential appearance that I am aware of in the near future that I cannot divulge at this time. Oh. But otherwise, any conventions that would like to have me, or any convention attendees who would like to have me at their local convention, information on that is available on my website of how to reach me.
Very good. And Mr. Pollock, I'm going to address the elephant in this room, which we've mentioned at least twice now. Can you give us any additional information on Sonic Boom?
It's going to be hysterical.
Oh, come on.
Here's the only... Okay, here's the obliquest of hints that I can give you.
All right.
I do at least one voice in Sonic Boom. If not more.
Oh, come on, Eggman. You gotta give us something, man.
Yes, but I'd like to not give too much information so that they no longer ask me to record it. You see, it's going to be funny. Even if you don't think you're going to like it, you certainly darn well better like it. It may not be what you expect from past incarnations, but if you can watch it with an open mind and realize that it may not adhere to any preconceived notions you may bring with you, the best solution is to watch it with a completely blank slate and put all your notions aside and say, gosh, I hope my favorite character's in it. Don't worry about that sort of thing.
They're not going to.
Well, it's entirely possible that they may not. you know that at least the core five characters or so will be there, and there will be other familiar faces, but if you dig too deeply in the obscure file of the canon, you're not going to get Ricky the Hedgehog from that obscure game in 1982. Yes, I know it was before the franchise existed. He's not going to be in it. But if you go in with an open mind and you appreciate the brilliant sitcom comedy of classic television shows of all the way from I Love Lucy and one of my personal favorites, Welcome Back, Kotter, and the brilliantly written cartoons of Rocky and Bullwinkle, all the way to Seinfeld and The Office and other brilliant sitcoms. This is a brilliant sitcom. It just happens to be animated. But if you close your eyes and listen to it as a radio play, which me being a fan of radio, and especially the golden age of radio when there were radio dramas and radio comedies, the writing is just brilliant. And then you add on top of it some beautiful animation with some characters you recognize and others you'll be happy to meet for the first time. It's going to be hysterical. It's brilliant. I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
You mentioned the writing. Is the writing at all from the writers of the current games, or are they a different set of writers altogether?
It's, I believe, a different set. I've not met most of the writers personally, because by the time we're in the room, we get a script and we get the head writer and the producer and the director just yelling at us with suggestions. But I know that at least for the Sonic Boom game that is being developed in tandem, it's written by a bunch of people and then it was freshened up by the TV writers. Oh. So there's some commingling of writing staff there.
Yeah, that trailer was just it blew my mind even more than the TV show did. Which, like you said, many people are very skeptical. So I now know that I just have to clear our mind, and everyone out there who's listening, like Mr. Pollock said, if you're gonna watch Sonic Boom for the first time, you have to have a blank slate on your mind. Don't think Sonic, don't have any memory of Sonic. This is a completely new universe. The characters may be the same, but basically not really as you know them. Am I in the correct?
The characters maintain their basic shapes with certain exceptions that we've all seen, but their basic personalities are intact. Their voices are largely the same, with a notable exception or two. But they are taken in a new direction. It is a very flexible and malleable, big word, universe where anything can happen. You'll see a lot of, for example, behind-the-scenes stuff of Dr. Eggman. Of not only is he the normal, everyday angry Dr. Eggman, but you'll get to see a little bit of the behind-the-scenes stuff of what makes him so angry. A little glimpse of the home life, as it were.
I see. Mr. Pollock, where can we follow your social activity?
If you start on my website at itsamike.com, you'll notice that my branding extends to Facebook as It's a Mike, and Twitter as It's a Mike, and Google Plus as It's a Mike. All those various social media networks are just fine. Even Skype, if you have to, also It's a Mike. You can chat, but you have to make an appointment. This is highly invasive. This is not that speaking to you at this time is not a pleasure, but if you call me in the middle of dinner, boy, my wife will give you such a pinch.
Oh, I see, Mr. Pollock. Do not worry. I understand what you're trying to tell me. I understand I'm being intrusive.
Thank you so much. But again, you make an appointment. I can get away from the family. We can conduct what I've coined the term a chatterview. It's a combination of a chat and an interview, because otherwise if it's, hey, guess what I did at school today? No. My children do that. I really don't need it from you. Thank you very much. With all due respect, please. Yes. Ask me about what I do. It's much easier than trying to make friends with a man who's probably 3 times your age. But that's enough.
That's enough. Well, that just about wraps it up. Thank you so much once more, Mr. Pollock, for granting me this interview. As I said, when I first saw when you replied to my comment on YouTube, I can now die a happy man, because I can officially say that I met and interviewed Dr. Eggman and the Pokemon narrator and Sam and Mead. And I just want to end this interview by saying that I admire you, sir. I mean, you're a great inspiration for me and so many other people I've met throughout my life, online and real life. You're a great inspiration to a lot of people, and you're an awesome man for putting up with so many fans such as myself, and an hour such as this, making time for your fans, making time for your work, and most of all, making time for your family, which you've mentioned throughout the interview, which is the most important thing, which is what I respect the most about you. You are Dr. Eggman for a reason. I mean, you give the character a certain personality, which many fail to incorporate in a villain, which is comedy, laughter. You made Eggman a non-serious villain with a master plan that grew into making more elaborate plans and ultimately tons of fun for people of my generation, pun entirely not intended, older gamers and younger audiences alike. Is there anything else you'd like to add for the viewers and other fans of your work?
I'll fill into that thought in that the first couple of episodes, if you go back to the beginning of Sonic X, when it was all Dean Bristow sounding voice all the time, we realized by the third or fourth episode that keeping down here, there's not going to be a lot of room for comedy, because not only is it kind of painful to talk like that unless you're actually Dean Bristow, but that voice can be fairly limiting in a dynamic range type of a way. So what TV's Andrew Reynolds, who was directing at the time, gave me as a note was to add a little bit of Martin Short's Jiminy Glick character to it, because Jiminy Glick starts up way up high and then goes way down low. So Eggman had a lot of peaks and valleys, and that was the peaks and valleys enabled the voice to expand and the comedy to expand. So I'm delighted that I was able to give such a villainous guy the chance to be comedic, as the scripts would often lend themselves. And it, because I'm a comedy guy, while I can do drama and tragedy and whatever else I'm called upon, I have the most fun making myself and other people laugh. So if there can be comedy involved, I'll do that for you and make it work. So I'm glad to see that worked out. And then the other thing that I can add is that during the brief time that I was in Rochester, New York, working at a radio station, the morning show guy, Brother Wheeze, don't ask, look him up, Google him. He would always sign off his show with a cute little catchphrase that I've taken to heart in the years since.
Oh, yes. What he's about to explain, ladies and gentlemen, is where his username on all these famous social media is, where it came from. It's a mic. In case you're wondering if it's from a certain mustachioed plumber, no.
You're misdirecting the story, because that's not actually where the story was going.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. I thought that's exactly where you were going. But
not a problem.
Excuse me.
Thank you very much. Brother Wheeze would always sign off his show, and I guess he still does. He's still on the radio. I haven't listened. But he would always say, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. Yeah. So if I can make a fan happy by engaging them in conversation, within reason, then I'll take a moment to do it. It's when it becomes, hi, what'd you do today? And then every day, then it's okay, you rein that in a little bit. But yeah, everybody deserves a little respect in life, and everybody deserves a couple minutes to chat with someone they deem as being important. And so it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. So chat with me, be civil, I'll chat back.
Thank you so much. Lesson learned, honestly. I really enjoy this chat with you, Mr. Pollock. I know that you really don't do second interviews with people, but I don't know, maybe if the time came, another time, I would love to do this again. If the opportunity was saying, I'm not saying you have to, I'm not saying that I'm going to contact you again at any time soon, because I know that that's not what you do. I just want to thank you a million times for being such the nice person you are, for bringing us tons of laughter and so many more things as the characters you've presented, and for being so nice to grant me an interview tonight of all nights, when, you know, I was expecting you to have such, you know, a huge a calendar full of interviews, and let's just do it tomorrow, you said, and I was perfectly fine with it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. In this case, the children were otherwise amused watching television, and my wife was able to watch them, so I was able to excuse myself. We had spent the day out and about running around and having dinner and such like that, but when it approaches bedtime, I can usually tear myself away for a bit of a chat. But what we might want to consider is Sonic Boom gets closer, or even after Sonic Boom has been on the air for a couple of weeks, then maybe we could do a follow-up. Love to hear your thoughts, and I'm sure you'd love to hear my thoughts, once I could share more of them.
Okay, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Michael B. Pollock, also known as, what is your other stage name, sir?
Occasionally it's Herb Lawrence, as a tribute to my late father. These and other interesting questions, like where the It's a Mike thing comes from, that's on the fact page of the website.
Yes. Okay, so thank you very much, sir. That'll be all. This is Char 5 and Mr. Mike Pollock, signing off.
Thanks for watching.